Welcome to the Cosmic Chronicles Podcast, where imagination meets reality. I'm your host, Quinn, and I'm joined by my co-host, James, yet again.
Greetings.
What's up, James? So, just to start off, we would like to thank our listeners for the early success of our podcast. We are still getting started, but it is nice to see us, popping up in places. So we are currently the #1 science fiction podcast in South Africa, #1 science fiction podcast in Hong Kong. I think I actually have a lot of Chinese audience because of my Three Body Problem coverage, so that's awesome. Also, we're the #1 of all podcasts in Bermuda. That's really weird and really cool. #1 science fiction in New Zealand, science fiction in Hungary, Denmark, Greece, and Slovakia. So thanks everyone for listening. We hope to continue episodes in the future and keep bringing out the cool sci-fi content for you guys. Now, as we mentioned in every episode, we are still brand new, so we are still currently on the lookout for sponsors. We've gotten a few sponsor offers, but none that were really consistent with the podcast for what we were going for. So we're still on the lookout because we want to keep it as authentic as possible and keeping with the theme of the podcast. So if you're interested in sponsoring this podcast, you can email us at cosmicchroniclespodcast@gmail.com.
You can find our podcast on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
So the topic for today is, how would our society react if aliens were real and came to Earth? In addition, we will talk about the phenomenon of abduction, specifically its portrayal in fiction, and supposed real-life examples of encounters of the third kind. Now, we planned this topic before what happened today, which is the 26th of July, which was the big government whistleblower thing that happened, the press conference where they're talking about the government has alien bodies. So we won't be talking about that today, but I just thought we would mention it so we don't get a bunch of comments about how we didn't mention it. We haven't researched that, and maybe that's something that we can save for a future podcast. Now, the UFO phenomenon has been a captivating and enduring aspect of society for many, many decades now. Unidentified flying objects refer to objects or lights observed in the sky that can't be really identified as any known aircraft or natural phenomenon. Recently, the term UAP has come to wider use. UAP stands simply for unidentified aerial phenomenon. So this kind of expands what can be viewed as, a UFO, like a craft in the sky. It expands the definition, kind of. The mystery surrounding these sightings has inspired countless works of fiction and sparked imaginations of people worldwide. Throughout history, there have been numerous reported sightings of UFOs and UAPs, some with some of the most famous incidents occurring in the mid-20th century. One of the most well-known examples was the Roswell incident of 1947, where an alleged alien UFO crash was reported in New Mexico. This event, along with other sightings and encounters, triggered widespread public interest and speculation about the existence of extraterrestrial life and the possibility of alien visitations. The influence of UFO/UAP phenomenon in fiction is substantial and far-reaching as well. Countless works of media in every form have been inspired by UFOs and extraterrestrial themes. Classic science fiction works like H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds and Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind have essentially become cultural landmarks, shaping the way we perceive supposed alien encounters and interactions. Whether depicting benevolent visitors or malevolent invaders, these fictional works continue to resonate with audiences to this day. But the question is why? Why has the idea of alien visitors endured so well? That is the question that we will attempt to answer in this episode of Cosmic Chronicles.
So, Quinn, do you believe that aliens exist?
This is a great question. Well, given the size of our universe, and assuming that the laws of physics, the laws that we know to exist, are consistent throughout the entirety of the cosmos, and given the number of stars and the number of planets that would be orbiting those stars, I think that it is almost certain that extraterrestrial life exists somewhere, just on a mere probability, just on the basis of mere probability. It would be so unlikely that we were the only planet in the cosmos that developed life. And I also think that we've only seen life where Earth is concerned. Everything on Earth has the same evolutionary tree, right? We have no idea really what other forms of life could exist in other places in the cosmos. There could be forms of life that exist in places that we never thought were even possible. Maybe forms of life that aren't even carbon based. For all we know, like in the center of some sun in some distant corner of the universe could contain a race of fire beings that are just as conscious as we are, that are wondering about the existence of other fire beings and looking at planets and thinking that no way life could exist there because it wouldn't be like us. So I just think the universe is so big and there could be so much out there that I think it's almost certain that life definitely exists somewhere else in other places. What about you, James? Do you believe that aliens exist?
Yeah, I think it would be illogical to believe that Earth is the only planet in the entire universe, let alone this galaxy, that supports life.
Yeah, I totally agree. It would definitely be illogical. And it kind of goes back to, that famous Drake equation, which some people have problems with. But I think whatever the calculations are, I think that it just intuitively makes sense. And if you don't know about the Drake equation basically suggests that based on the number of stars in our universe and based on the number of planets, that there should be a certain amount of life, a certain amount of planets that contain life, right? And then you get the Fermi paradox as like an offshoot from that, because the Fermi paradox then asks the question, if there should be this amount of life, then why don't we see it? But that's a whole different conversation. So yeah, I just think as a probability fact, aliens, do they exist? Certainly. And is conscious life out there? Almost certainly. And almost certainly there are other civilizations that are similarly advanced as us, or more so, or more primitive. Almost certainly.
So here's the next step. Do you believe that aliens are here?
Now, this is a more difficult question. If you had to ask me right now, given the evidence that we have presented, I don't know if I can make the positive belief statement. I don't know if I can say I believe that alien beings are here. I don't know if I can say that. I just don't think that the evidence is there. I don't think that the burden of proof has been met. Now, that doesn't mean that there isn't something going on. That doesn't mean that these pilots and these people that are seeing things aren't seeing things. It doesn't even mean that the so-called whistleblowers are lying even. It could just be something else that we don't necessarily get or understand. My mind tends to go when I think about, when they talk about lights in the sky, I go to the simulation route first before I go to aliens personally. But like I said, if you had to ask if I believe, the answer has to be no. I'm a non-believer. And so where do you land on this particular issue?
Well, I'm not entirely sure if they come from another planet, but I think something is here. So I think for the most part, I believe because I want to believe. Like, I hope that there's aliens here, because if they're here and they're just observing us, they haven't done anything malicious yet. They're watching. And so that makes me feel like there's something bigger than us that is out to protect us.
That kind of goes into a little bit of what we were talking about with the AI episode, because I'm not an astrologist at all. I don't believe in astrology or any of that. But I do think the idea of, different ages is interesting, that humanity goes in and out of different ages. Because right now, if you don't know, a lot of astrology people believe we are now entering into the age of Aquarius, or we have entered it. I think certain people believe that it started in the 60s. But essentially, the age of Aquarius is the age of science and logic. And kind of like the old way of doing things and the old ways of thinking are kind of dying out. So it's kind of like in this age of science and logic and reason, humanity is looking for a new God. And that God might come in the form of AI, or that God might come in the form of aliens to some people. And I think that idea is very, very compelling, like you said, because it is like we would have a guardian, right? So if aliens were here, then they're obviously astronomically advanced. They're very powerful. And I don't think we would be a hindrance to them. I think we'd be a kind of experiment or something. So we have all these nukes pointed at each other, and that's a scary thought. But would alien beings really allow us to nuke ourselves if we're their experiment and they've expended such energy to get here and to observe us? Would they allow us to nuke each other? I would say I don't think they would. I think they would stop it. And I think that idea that we would have someone to save us from ourselves, that's something that I think we all want. That's why people turn to religion in the first place, I think, in large. So yeah, I think that was a great point that you made about, wanting to believe, because it means that there is something greater than us that's watching. And I think our world is becoming more and more secular, for sure. People are turning away from like the traditional religions more and more and more. And just because we're turning away from religion doesn't mean that people don't want to be led. Doesn't mean people don't want to feel like they're protected. I mean, it's very comforting to feel protected, especially in such an uncertain world.
Do you think the existence of aliens will bring the human species closer?
That's an interesting question. And that's kind of something that is explored in one of our favorite series, Lushishin's Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy. Because I think Lushishin definitely is coming from a Chinese perspective where it's very collectivist.
Right.
And it's about the human species coming together and working together for a goal.
When I was reading that book, I kept thinking there's no way we could get Americans to agree on something like this.
Yeah, I feel like our world is very divided now. And there's an idea. We have this idea that I've seen repeated in fiction before, even in things like Star Trek, that the coming of aliens will bring us closer together because it'll show us like that we're not so different because there's other species. But I definitely don't think it's that simple. I think that the coming of aliens I think it could go a lot of different ways. I think that a lot of people might be very fearful. I think that a lot of people might even become more reclusive and more like all about their tribe. But then again, I understand wanting to be optimistic and wanting to think that we do need something like a big threat that threatens all of humanity, or like knowing.
I feel like we have plenty of that already without aliens, and it's still not bringing us together. It's driving us apart.
Exactly. I feel like we already have a big threat that we could be coming together over. We've got several of those things. Like we talked about the nukes that are pointing. We can talk about climate change. We already have this, and I feel like it's already not bringing us closer together. And even in the Three Body Problem series, what we see, there's a lot of growing pains before they get to that collectivist thing. It gets really, really, really bad before it gets good. And I think that's kind of the point, right? I think Lushishin is kind of saying like, hey guys, we could really, really go this way, but we have a chance out of it if we come together, right? Because in that series, you have like the Great Ravine, where we find out that aliens are coming in like 400 years or something. And because of that, humanity kind of falls into absolute chaos, and climate change accelerates, and people no longer care about protecting the world. And billions and billions of people die before the aliens even get here, just because of just like it just turns the world to pure chaos. And I could see that happening, and I could see humanity like kind of dying out that way. But I think Three Body Problem, people say the series is like depressing, but I think at the core of it, it has an optimistic edge to it.
If you read it till the end, it has a positive message. It really does.
Well, even throughout it, it's like, even with like the Great Ravine, it's like they come out of the Great Ravine, like they make a better world by coming together. So he is saying that the human beings are we are survivors. We can make it through things if we come together. But he is also saying that.
That's why he calls us bugs.
Yeah. And yeah.
And like how roaches always survive.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. But he's also saying that it can go really, 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 really bad if we don't cooperate. And I don't know if we're there as a species. Now, maybe the aliens coming will be the kick in the behind that we need. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. I guess I feel like as I get older, I get more cynical. If you asked me this question, even like 3 years ago, I might have said like, oh, absolutely, it'll bring us together. But now I'm just not so certain. And it's weird. And it's weird to say that. But yeah, I'm not. I used to be very much about that Star Trek future. I'm like, when the Vulcans get here, we're going to come together. But now I think maybe when the Vulcans get here, half of us think they're Satan. Half of us think they're God. The other half are just confused and chaotic. I don't know. I don't know.
So let's say the aliens get here and they're benevolent. Okay, they give us the perfect society. They give us what we need. There's no more starvation. We don't need things anymore because we can have what we want. We can live the lives we want. They create a perfect utopia. Can we still trust them?
I think the answer has to be no. Trust is a weird word, right? So if they're here and they do all these things, it's like, do we have a choice, right? Do we have a choice in them improving the world? Like, okay, so for instance, Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End is about exactly that. It's about exactly that. And reading that book, even by the end, you can read that whole book and you still don't know whether or not you trust the aliens, even after the whole shebang that goes down. Because it's like, did they really do it for the benefit of humanity? Or was it for some other
Give us a little
reason?
Synopsis of the book for people who haven't.
Okay.
People who don't know what we're talking about.
So the book is really old, so we're going to spoil it a little bit here. So Arthur C. Clarke's Childhood's End, you have aliens show up on Earth, right? And they start improving society. And also these aliens, when they finally reveal themselves, they actually look like demons. And there's a whole explanation for why they look like that. We don't have to get into this now. But they improve the Earth. But they also start sterilizing people at a certain point. They eventually take everyone's children, put them on like a separate continent. And eventually they leave most of the human race to just like die. And all of the children are converted into energy for this super consciousness. And if you read the book, it kind of reads as like, oh, the aliens did a great thing. They elevated humanity to the next stage of evolution. It was time for our next stage of evolution. You can read it like that. But also you can look at it like, actually, the aliens conquered us and they fed our collective consciousness to some supreme being. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So trust is a weird thing. Trust is a very weird thing. Okay. And also we would never understand their actual motives, I don't think. Right? We would always wonder why they're doing what they're doing. It would always be kind of like side eye. You know what I mean? Because these are beings that are from a totally different evolutionary track. They have totally different consciousness for all we know. They are not like us in a sense that like we're totally from different evolutionary roots and trees. And also there's the power imbalance, right? They would be astronomically more advanced than us, right? So even if we thought we had chosen consciously to agree, like let's say they give us a choice, right? And they say, do you want this? Do you not? And we agree, right? Ostensibly we agree, but how can we ever know that we actually agreed? How could we ever know that we actually agreed and that they didn't just manipulate us into thinking that we consciously made the choice ourselves, right? What if they had been here for the past 50 years, placing subliminal messages in our media, preparing us, right? What if that's like all the alien stuff that we've been seeing right now? It's just been a preparation for them to finally reveal themselves, right? What if they've been manipulating the whole thing? I feel like that chain of suspicion goes on indefinitely. And it's a combination of different things. It's a combination of, like I said, them being very, very different from a totally different evolutionary tree, and the fact that they're so advanced and so powerful. I think that true trust, the way two human beings can trust each other, is kind of out of the question. I think people have a hard enough time trusting each other. Like when two people are very different from each other, I think people have a hard time trusting each other. Like let's say you've got like two people on different sides of the political spectrum, right? A phenomenon that I see especially now is that these two people will never trust each other. They will never trust that the other person is speaking honestly and saying what they actually mean. They'll always feel like the other person has an ulterior reason for saying what they're saying. You know what I mean? So I feel like considering how hard it is for us to trust each other, considering how different they'll be, and considering how powerful they'll be, no trust, in my opinion.
Okay, so if aliens came here, why would they come? What do they want?
See, that's the other question, and that goes right into the trust question. What do they want? They could very well just want to help. They could see that we're struggling. They could see that we're a burgeoning civilization that could be really great, but we're on the verge of destruction. Maybe they just want to help. That's a total possibility. Maybe we're an interesting experiment to them. Maybe they seeded the planet a long time ago with their own DNA, and that's what we are, and they're just monitoring their experiment. I mean, there's endless possibilities as to why they're here. I mean, we've seen countless works of fiction that depict it. You know, honestly, what I think is unlikely, I don't think the aliens would be necessarily hostile. I don't buy the aliens want our resources because the universe is full of resources. Aliens would have no need to come here for our resources.
Well, I like to think that an advanced species that is advanced enough to travel to Earth, they're probably already collectivist, and they probably already have the greater good in mind.
Yeah, and I tend to agree in the collectivist, about the collectivist point, because it's like, for you to even reach the point as a species where you can achieve something like space travel at great distances or interdimensional travel, that requires a degree of cooperation among that species, because these are things that, like I said, would expend astronomical levels of energy. It requires so much cooperation. Again, going back to three-body problem, when they build their like supercomputer, the SOFON thing, it's the whole planet that is doing this. It's not just like one country or anything. So yeah, I think they would already be prone to wanting to be collectivistic. And so that could be a motivation for them coming to Earth, because they're already like, oh, we cooperate as a species, so maybe it's time to cooperate with other species. And again, that's the idea behind Star Trek, you know, with the whole Federation of Planets. It's like they go to other worlds because it's all about being collective, and it's all about harnessing our collective consciousness to do great things in the universe. So yeah, that is the optimistic way of thinking about it. And honestly, I think that does make more sense than we're here for your resources, we're here for your women. That doesn't make sense, because you can get resources anywhere. They'd be better off going to a planet that doesn't have anybody there if they just want resources. I think that if they're here, it's our consciousness that concerns them. To whatever, in whatever way it is the fact that we are a conscious civilization that concerns them. I think maybe that's my arrogance. Maybe they're studying the dolphins, but in general, yeah, I tend to agree with that. I don't think they're necessarily benevolent in the sense that like they're do-gooders, but definitely collectivists.
So yeah, I think one of the reasons I've always wanted aliens to exist is because they would bring knowledge with them. I've always wanted to know, what are the secrets of the universe? And if this advanced species can come to Earth, then they probably have something to teach us. And that's why I've always hoped that we can make contact in my lifetime so I can know what they know.
That's such a good point. And you know what's really freaking funny? We just watched Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, because we watched all of them. It's fine. It's not a good movie, whatever. but the Scarlett, what's her name? Kate Blanchett's character. Her whole thing is she wants to know all the secrets of the universe. And that's like the last scene in the movie where like the aliens are telling her everything and she's just like getting all the knowledge, and it kind of goes Lovecraftian a little bit. But yeah, that is compelling. Humans, we're like little knowledge. We're so curious. We're like little knowledge sponges. We want to absorb all the knowledge. And I totally get that. I've always wanted to be on the Enterprise, flying around and doing research and encountering anomalies and like figuring it out. That to me is probably the most compelling thing about science fiction, because it can put you on a spaceship. It makes you feel like you're discovering the secrets of the universe. That's what a good science fiction does. That's why Alistair Reynolds' Revelation Space series, he's so good at doing that. He's so good at creating these compelling mysteries and like making you feel like you're figuring out the secrets of the cosmos. So I think that's a good point. That's definitely a good point. And I totally agree.
Okay, so say the aliens aren't benevolent, though. Could humanity hope to fight off invading aliens with our current technology? Should they be hostile?
Well, I think, okay, as much as we want to go the Independence Day route and be like, yeah, we can do it, I think we get creamed. I think we get absolutely creamed. If they're already here...
There's no way.
There's no way.
There's no way. They could just drop something in the ocean and...
They would absolutely
take out all the coastal cities.
That's why I don't think they're hostile, because if they wanted us dead, it wouldn't be some convoluted, slow way to kill us. It would be, they're going to poison our atmosphere, and it's going to be something they're immune to, and we're just going to die.
They could turn our electricity off.
Yeah, they just turn off the electricity. You know what I mean?
Easy.
Most of us would cook in the 114-degree weather here in California sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think we stand a chance. As much as I want to be like, we could fight them off. If it's a three-body problem situation and they're hundreds of years in the future, of course. I think of course. And the three-body problem does a really good job of explaining how that would exactly work. Even if the aliens are way more advanced than we are, us knowing that they exist, well, we talk about the exponential expansion of technology. By the time they get here in 4 years, our technological expansion could be immense. We could expand immensely. And there's no assumption that we can't make an assumption that each species expands at the same rate. Humanity's rate of expansion, technological progress, has been insanely fast. And we don't know what that is comparatively speaking to other species. So we could be about to be invaded by a species that is very advanced, but maybe their expansion rate is a lot slower than ours. And maybe within the time span of a few hundred years, we're more advanced than they are. So if that's the case, yeah, if they're already here, zip, nada, we're done, zapped. It'd be like Mars Attack 3.0. I love Mars Attack, by the way. You ever seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Mars Attack is one of my favorite alien movies. If you've not seen that, it's wacky, fun, based on a comic strip from, I think, the 1940s or 50s or something like that. But just like, one of the best alien invasion movies of all time. If you haven't seen that one, I don't want to spoil anything. I know some young kids are watching. If you haven't seen Mars Attack, go watch it. But anyway, I think we get zapped. We get zapped.
Okay, so here's a different scenario. How would we treat aliens if they were here as refugees? They're trying to escape their planet.
Yikes.
Coming here for refuge.
That'd be bad.
What do we do?
That'd be bad. That'd be real bad. Well, we only have to look at the real world to know our answer. How do we treat human refugees? Imagine a different species. We've both seen District 9. So I imagine District 9, except worse. They wouldn't have that much freedom. They'd be in a government containment field, something, being monitored all the time. Maybe not even seeing the light of day, maybe like 50 feet underground. No, it'd be bad. We would not be giving them land. I just don't think that would be... I don't think that'd be out of the question. Absolutely. I'm not saying that I agree with that. I absolutely don't agree with that. I feel like if they were here, I feel like, yeah, we should learn as much as we can from them. But ultimately, if we determine that they were actually refugees, I feel like we couldn't, I feel like it would be unethical to keep conscious beings locked up like that, even if they're a different species. But I think collectively, humanity is not ready for alien refugees. I just think we're not ready for it.
Okay, so what happens if our technology advances a little further and we find aliens first? We find their planet and we go to them. What do we do?
Oh, God. So now we're shifting on to Avatar.
Avatar.
Yeah. So, yeah, I feel like Avatar is kind of accurate, right? I mean, I feel like it would definitely be... It depends on why we're going. It depends on why we're going. Is it like the humanity has evolved to the place where we have cooperated to the point where we have collectively chosen to go to outer space to explore? Or is it, Wayland Corp, where it's right.
Because in Avatar, they're there for the resources and the aliens just They just happen to be there.
Yeah, there's a very special like type of.
But I guess my question is, what if we know that there's intelligent life on a planet, maybe not as advanced as us, and then we go to make contact?
If we are going to explore, to make contact, I think it depends on it. I feel like their reaction is more important than our reaction, because if we're not going with hostile intent, right, then I think we would really just be going there to like kind of like learn and develop. But I think that it just depends on where our species is at the point in time. Like, have we moved beyond this place where we feel this need to dominate and we feel this need to control? Because I think of like things like, you know, like the colonization of like Africa or in like the terrible things that get done to the indigenous. The thing I would be worried about is that we come there with good intentions, but as the generations go on, other people come there with not good intentions, and maybe people want to build real estate on the alien planet and sell it to like billionaires or trillionaires by that point, probably. Maybe people are now like uprooting natural habitats on the alien world to build like, I don't know, casinos or something now on the alien world. I'm just worried. I just know humanity's track record. And that makes me worried, even if we go there initially to explore or to learn. I wonder, like, what happens then? I feel like we would have to make laws as a species protecting this newly discovered alien planet, especially if they're, like, a lot more primitive than us. And then also, a big thing that we would have to think about is our impact on them as a society, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't want to be influencing religions. We wouldn't want to be like making religions, Bene Gesserit. You know, Star Trek, The Next Generation, like I said, my favorite show.
Your
of all
favorite
time,
show?
Has an episode called Who Watches the Watcher, which is about exactly that. And Seth MacFarlane did an episode of The Orville, which is a direct reference to that episode, which takes it even a step further. But essentially, you have the Federation, they're watching this primitive culture, but then they get discovered. And long story short, the aliens end up believing that Captain Picard is a god. They see the technology, they see like the power of the Enterprise, and they assume that he's a god. And so that episode is all about like him trying to fix this problem, because in Star Trek, they have the Prime Directive, which is that you do not influence other cultures. It leads to just like bad things happening. And I feel like that is something we would have to be concerned about, because, you know, there's a reason that the ancient aliens theory is compelling, because it would totally happen, right? If you have alien life forms that are primitive and they see our spaceships flying around, they see human suits and like in weird suits with weird technology moving around, and then we like leave them for a significant period of time, who knows where that legend goes in 20, 50, 1,000 years, whenever we come back, you know what I mean? We've now created a god. We've now created a religion based on our image. So we'd have to be very careful with that, at least. Yeah, so those are generally the places my mind goes. I would worry about their safety, and I would worry about influencing them in negative ways, and I would worry about the safety of their planet.
Have you read a book called The Sparrow?
The Sparrow, I have not.
I can't recommend that book enough. I recommend it to everybody I know who loves science fiction. It was actually one of the first science fiction books I read that actually made me think. Because I had read other books before, like novelizations of Star Wars, which isn't really science fiction. But this book, I picked it up. It was for a philosophy class in college. And it's about what happens when we find them first, when we go to their planets to see what's up.
So what's the basic like synopsis? Don't spoil it.
I don't want to spoil it, because I think this book is best read if you don't know what they find. So I'm not going to tell you what they find on the planet that they go to, but it starts out with we receive a signal, and the signal seems to have gotten to our planet by accident. We picked it up by accident, and it's a choir. They're singing. Their voices, they're not human voices, but we know that there's something biological that's singing. And this shows us humans that they have a culture. If they're singing music that we can understand, there is a culture on another planet. And it just so happens that we're just about advanced enough to get there. And the main character, he's a linguist, and he's going to go try to...
rival.
Yeah, he's going to try to talk to these things. The other part of it is he's sent by the Catholic Church. He's a priest as well. And
it's nice little...
So I'm not going to say what happens with that. I think everyone who's listening to this should pick up that book right now, The Sparrow, and find out what they find on this planet, because it makes me sick to my stomach.
Be,
the end is just crazy.
That might be a future Quinn's Ideas video.
I've been telling every time you post on Twitter about what should I do a video on next, I always comment the sparrow. Please read The Sparrow.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that sounds hella cool. So that's definitely something I'm going to be checking out. Yeah, that's just like that idea. I worry about like the evil of humanity. You know what I mean? I really worry about that. Like when we talk about a primitive alien culture, I worry about the evil of humanity and what we do to them more than anything, for sure. And I feel like we're capable of great destruction when we're not thoughtful, when we're not being mindful. We're capable of also like great beauty. We're capable of amazing things as a species when we are mindful and when we learn to, you know, appreciate the beauty of things without needing to like take from that beauty, to take a piece of it for our own, to just let it exist and let it be beautiful and not like, you know, just like not to take from it, not to drain it.
Let's talk about how religions will change when we have proof that aliens do exist, whether they're here or not. With just the fact that we know that aliens exist, here's the proof. How does that change our culture?
I think Three Body Problem deals with this just like a little bit. They talk about how religions are adapting a little bit. But I long story short, I think that most religions would do what they've been doing for thousands of years, which is just they would adapt to, like, you know, include the aliens. You know what I mean?
They would just change the interpretation.
Yeah, it would be like, oh, this scripture, oh, this was clearly talking about aliens. I feel like religions adapt and they change, and they've always changed and adapted. I don't think religion is going away because of aliens. I think that it will just change, like everything else will change if we uncover aliens. Definitely change, not go away.
Well, there's a really good movie about how aliens and religion can coexist. It's called Contact. It's actually a book first.
I've not read the book, but of course I've seen Contact. Great book
movie by Carl Sagan. It's Jodie a great book. It's better than the movie, of course. Book's always better than the movie.
Especially in the 90s. It's usually, you can't put all the detail.
Well, Matthew McConaughey plays a super interesting character in the film because he's religious and he interprets the signals that they're getting in a different way. There's a scene where Jodie Foster's character is talking about how the message that she got, it was written in the language of science for her to decode. And if it had been religious in nature, it would have been a burning bush or a big booming voice from the sky. And Matthew McConaughey's character responds by saying, but this is literally a voice from the sky. So he interprets what these...
Interpretation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing to bring up. Because, you know, like we said, we talk about ancient aliens, right? If we saw aliens in the sky thousands of years ago, they would be gods. Absolutely. Not that I believe in the whole ancient alien hypothesis or whatever. I don't at all. But like, I just, that is what would happen. And it also, getting into the point of interpretation, that reminds me of Signs.
That's one of my favorite movies.
And a lot of people don't like Signs, but that's one of our favorites.
I know, whenever I say, oh, Signs, it's one of my favorite movies, people roll their eyes and they go, oh, but the aliens, they're killed by water. Why would they come to Earth? But we have an answer for that.
People absolutely don't get it. And other
they don't get what Signs is about.
Other people have come to this conclusion as well. But if you pay attention to that movie, it's simple. So ostensibly, you just watch the movie. It's about aliens, right? And you see the lights in the sky, and that's
crop circles.
Crop circles. But then it's like weird because the aliens melt in the end of the movie. And like, what's up with that?
Yeah, water kills them.
Because they're not aliens. They're demons. Nope. And once you understand this, it becomes so unbelievably obvious. Like, I'm going to give you guys a challenge, everyone listening to the podcast right now. If you've seen Signs before, listen to what we're about to say and watch it again, and it will make the most sense possible. So they're demons. Quite obviously demons. First of all, they're naked. They've got no technology. We don't see any alien technology in this whole thing. Why would aliens be naked? I know like in like older movies, they're naked, but like why would these aliens be naked walking around with no technology? 2, the aliens can't open doors. And if you know anything about like mysticism or the occult, you know that spirits, demons, evil entities, vampires, things like that usually need to be invited in. They have to be let in. 3, the movie has prophecies and divine messages. On his wife's deathbed, she basically predicts the end of the movie. She has a vision. Tell George to swing away, right? So she predicts it. She's given this vision, which saves him at the end of the movie. 2, this is where the water makes sense. So this is the most perplexing thing. This is the thing that people will always talk about. If the aliens knew the planet was covered in water, why would they come? And that's a great point. Why would they come?
Yeah.
Because it's not just water, people. It's holy water, right? So if you pay attention in the movie, Mel Gibson's character, he specifically says that people, when they looked at his daughter when she was born, said she was like an angel. She was an angel. And that's why she was leaving the glasses of water all over the house, blessing them. It was an angel blessing the water. That's why the water melts the demons at the end. Do you wonder in this movie when you're watching it, why is he a priest? Why is this character a priest at all? It's because it's about faith and the restoration of his faith. In the end of the movie, he's now a priest again. He's put back on the priest gear and he now believes again. Why is that? Like a lot of people just look at that scene and they think, oh, whatever, he's gone through this experience and now he believes again, whatever. It's not that simple. The existence of God has been proven to him at this point. His wife gave him a prophecy on his deathbed, which taught him how to kill the demons. His daughter blessed the water. The demon melted right in front of him. He's seen it. He's seen it. And even things like when the kid holds the baby monitor up, you think, oh, this is an alien signal coming down. Hello, the concept of white noise in mysticism and the supernatural has existed for a very long time. Voices coming through in radio signals, things like that. He was picking up to some kind of like ethereal frequency. And then the lights in the sky. You might think ostensibly they're alien ships. They're not. That's the presence of God or angels. Everything in that movie that you can interpret as aliens makes more sense as demons. And then finally, at the end of the movie, there's that whole thing where people are talking about, I think it's like a radio.
It's on the newscast.
It's a news broadcast where they say specifically people in the Middle East have found an ancient method of dealing with the aliens. What is that? Holy water. It's the Middle East. Think about it. So yeah, every single thing in that movie that you think is aliens, demons.
The part of the movie that made me first think about this is when Mel Gibson and Joaquin Phoenix's character is watching the lights on the sky on the news. And the quote that Mel Gibson says is, "See, what you have to ask yourself is, what kind of person are you? Are you the kind that sees signs, that sees miracles? Or do you believe that people just get lucky? Or look at the question this way. Is it possible that there are no coincidences?" So he's telling Joaquin Phoenix's character and also the audience that this movie, everything that's happening can be viewed with two lenses, the lens of faith or the lens of science. If you're going into this movie with your own preconceived notions of this is about aliens, then you're going to see aliens. But if you go into this movie knowing that it's about faith, then you're going to see demons.
And I saw aliens the first 5 times I watched this movie. Until you put it in my mind, these are not aliens, and then everything about it makes so much sense. Even the way the aliens appear and the way they're framed, like the demon on the top of the house, that's demonic. The way their eyes, the malice and the menace, the hatred in their eyes, that's not an alien.
Right.
Why does an alien hate so much? Usually the way aliens are depicted, soulless, empty, no emotion. Think the Greys. There's no fire in the sky. I mean, those guys are a little bit vicious. But generally, aliens are soulless. They've got their little straight mouths, big eyes. These aliens snarl in this menacing way. It's demonic.
And think about why in the end it takes the little boy.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the innocence. That's what demons do. Demons always want innocent souls. That's what they want. They want to claim innocent souls and turn them dark or consume them or whatever. That's another aspect of demology or whatever you want to call it. That it's pretty well known and prominent. So just all of it makes sense. Because why is the alien taking the little boy? What is he doing? Why does the alien want the kid? It doesn't make any sense. Why does the demon want the kid? It's obvious. So Signs is great. It's one of M. Night Shyamalan's best, I think. And I honestly like a lot of M. Night Shyamalan's movies. I feel like, sure, Avatar is not great. Sure, like some of them aren't great. He's got some stinkers like everybody, but Sixth Sense, Signs, The Village, even Lady in the Water is a great movie, very underrated. So give him some props.
So what would you do in an alien invasion?
Well, it depends on what point in my life it happens. Because look, here's my thing, guys. Ever since I saw Blast from the Past as a kid with Brendan Fraser, I have wanted a bunker. Like, I swear to God, I know that sounds like insane and crazy, but just like, if you just look up the bunker from Blast to the Past, and you'll know why I wanted it. It's so cool. They have like a house underground. But if I got my bunker, I'm just going to be hanging out underground. Not that that would save me, but I feel like probably if aliens were coming, there's going to be a lot of human chaos. And I would want to be protected from the human chaos more than anything. The aliens, I can't stop the aliens. The aliens are going to do what the aliens do. I'm afraid of the people. So I'd probably just be hiding out in my bunker. Like just if I make a few $1 billion. Probably not.
You'd be like that guy at the end of War of the Worlds.
Yeah. I'm just going to be chilling. Yeah. But we'll see. Like, realistically, I'm like everybody else. I'm gonna be at home, glued to the TV, seeing what's.
That would be my answer too. I would react the same way I react whenever there's some big event going on. I'd switch between the different news stations and scroll through social media to see what the latest update is.
Scrolling through Twitter, or should I say X?
I would probably be nervous, but ultimately excited because everything's about to change. So there's this
scared and excited,
uneasy feeling.
Oh, I know what you do. You'd be like calling everybody and being like, "I told you so."
I told you. So much of my family makes fun of me for believing aliens.
You know, I think it's fun to believe in aliens. I feel like a lot of people get like kind of like super uptight about it, and they're like, "You believe in aliens?" And I'm just like, let people have fun. Of all the things that people can believe in that don't really matter that much, I feel like aliens is fine. Yeah. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's fun. So yeah, we'd be chilling if aliens were here, and there's not much you can do.
So why do you think this idea of aliens visiting Earth is so captivating to us?
It's something that's captivated us like since we discovered the existence of planets. Science fiction writers have been on this. I mean, H.G. Wells has the most famous story about it, and I think there's a couple reasons. One is because people are obsessed with the idea of the alien invasion, right? People, it's scary because in the event of an alien invasion, this is a highly advanced race like attacking us, and like it's this global destruction. So that's a compelling narrative. That's a fun story, and also it's a fun story how we defeat them, right? That's fun. And then also, like we mentioned earlier, it's like wanting to believe. I think it's fun. Like the idea that aliens exist and that they're going to come here and they're going to have this fantastic technology and they're going to have all this knowledge. There's something about it that's just extremely compelling. And I think the reason that it gets repeated over and over in fiction is that it has so many possibilities. It's got so many different avenues. There's so many different ways it can go. Aliens could appear in so many different forms and in so many different, there's so many like variables to consider. And I think it's a concept that can be like endlessly explored and extrapolated upon. There's always another variant on the concept and on the idea. And I think that's why it hasn't really gone stale, right? Like you can still write an alien invasion story today and keep it fresh and captivating. And I think that Shishinlo's books are like one of the best examples of like a modern alien invasion story that's just great. It's not H.G. Wells, you know what I mean? Like the Three-Body Problem and The World Worlds are like two completely different stories about two utterly different things, but ostensibly they are about the same thing, an alien invasion. I just think the potential of the idea is extremely expansive, and it's, like I said, just extremely fun to consider and to contemplate. And I also think that human beings in general, we are captivated with the thought of life beyond us, because at the end of the day, I don't think we want to be alone. Even if we would be fearful if we got evidence of aliens, even if we would be very fearful if they were here, I think that we don't want to be alone in the universe, because the idea that we are alone in the universe suggests that like if it's just us, if we destroy ourselves, then there's nothing else. And I think that's very, very, very sad. And we want aliens to exist because it means that there is more. There is more. There is so much more to learn. All of these different civilizations could potentially have so much to teach us. And there's potentially so much to discover, like more so than just like exploring planets and black holes and stuff like that. There's entire cultures that are born from completely different roots than us. And, you know, that's fun.
So let's shift gears and talk about some real life stories about aliens, specifically Roswell, which in my opinion is kind of like American folklore.
It absolutely is American folklore. 100%. That's what it is. It's a cultural landmark, as like I think we said at the beginning of the podcast. So like kind of the obsession with UFOs and this phenomenon began in like the late 1940s.
It was in 1947. One of the first reported incidences was it was a civilian pilot named Kenneth Arnold, and he had an encounter with a flying disc-like object. That's where the term flying saucers started captivating the public. And after that sighting, there were numerous sightings, about 800 of them, matching this guy's description, including a United Airlines flight that reported seeing multiple saucers. And at the time, Americans saw the saucers as military projects, jokes, or natural phenomena.
So they didn't really think they were aliens at the time. They were just like, oh, this is military joke or like a natural phenomenon. It wasn't like people at the time weren't like, oh, these are aliens.
No, they didn't think of them as aliens at all. They just called them flying saucers. They didn't really know. In fact, they were taken more seriously back then as like a weather or natural phenomenon. They were actually reported in scientific journals, and they were considered giant airborne objects in the sky, neither airships nor meteors. So it was between these months of June and July in 1947, all these flying saucer sightings started coming about. And a trippy fact about it is that they seem to be concentrated in Arizona and New Mexico, which was the site for America's post-war defense efforts in atomic research. Roswell, at the time, hosted the only combat-trained atom bomb group in the world. You could look it up. It's the 509th Composite Group. They're the ones that detonated Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
From Roswell.
Roswell.
That's insane that's the same place where supposedly the aliens landed.
Crashed. So Roswell, the Roswell incident was supposedly a crash landing.
Well, you know, okay, I've heard that before, that the increase in UFO phenomenon was the result of like the aliens might have come because of the nukes. Because
we started setting off nukes. It lines up perfectly.
They come right to
and
Roswell.
Then Roswell is where, like I said before, had the only combat-trained atom bomb group in the world.
Yeah, that is a weird fact. So if people don't know the exact story of Roswell, I actually covered it in my Halloween special from last year, and you can check that out. We talk about Roswell a little bit. But basically the gist is something crashes. There's this weird material, and the government, the story gets changed several times.
Well, how it first came to light is the Roswell Army Air Force Base jumped the gun out of excitement. There was a rancher that said, hey, something crashed. I think you guys might want to take a look at it. They go out and they actually put out a statement, and it starts out by saying, the many rumors of the flying disc became a reality yesterday. And then it goes on saying that a rancher reported a flying disc. It landed on his property and it was transported to the Roswell Army Air Base where it was inspected and was later transferred to higher headquarters. So that initial release didn't give any details on the appearance of the saucer, and it left out important details from the witnesses. There were several accounts from ranchers, soldiers, law enforcement, and a group of archaeology students. And these witnesses recall a half a dozen bodies being excavated from the crash site. They described them as 4-foot-tall, pale of skin, humanoid creatures. And they also saw hieroglyphic-like markings on certain columns and control panels. They described the materials from the craft as looking like tinfoil, rubber, and even wood. However, the appearance of the debris is where the similarities ended. The materials couldn't be torn, they couldn't be dented, or burnt. The tinfoil-like metal could be manipulated, but it would then reshape itself to its original form.
I totally have heard that. I've heard that. Yeah.
Well, after that initial release that the military gave out, the media went crazy, but then there was a media blackout. And they put out a new report saying that the crashed object was just a weather balloon.
They changed the story several times.
Yeah.
That's where it gets suspicious.
And you've seen that picture. There's two guys like holding up what looks like just the weather. It's a fake picture. And how we know that? The source is the people in that photo said the material that they actually got from Roswell was already on a truck and on a plane being transported somewhere else by the time that picture was taken. That weather balloon that they got came in from somewhere else, and they said, pose with this, let the media take whatever pictures they want. And that weather balloon that's in the photo isn't even the same type of weather balloon that the report said it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And think about it this way, too. 2 days prior, a real crashed weather balloon was collected in Ohio, and the military easily identified it, and they didn't have to transfer it to higher headquarters. Yeah, a weather balloon it would not produce that much debris over that amount of land, and it also wouldn't tear up the ground.
So there's just a lot of suspicion surrounding this.
It's just a lot of questions, a lot of mystery.
Well, I think the reason that it's so mysterious and compelling is because of the government trying to cover it up so hard. I feel like if they hadn't tried so hard to cover it up, I feel like people would have let it go by now. But the fact that they've consistently changed the story, and they even changed the story again in like 1999 for no reason, like, why would you change the story?
And there's a new report
50 years later.
Recently, they just put out a report, and I read it. But the funny thing about that report is they'll talk about the materials being tinfoil and wood and this and that. But the witnesses that are talking about the materials, they're saying it's tinfoil-like, but it wasn't tinfoil. They're saying there were hieroglyphics on these things. The thing that looked like wood wouldn't burn.
And also
we couldn't break
quality of it, like crumpling and then uncrumpling itself.
Yeah, so it had the appearance of, they were just describing what they saw, like they weren't really fathoming what they were seeing.
Yeah. So the Roswell story is definitely one that's like totally captivated America for decades and decades. And this is also something that I was kind of obsessed with growing up. It
gets clowned a lot, but if you start looking at all the facts, it's like, wait a minute.
There's a lot
what happened here? If it's not aliens, then what is it? It wasn't a weather balloon.
There's a lot of weirdness. Now, you can't totally rule out that it wasn't just some secretive government thing that they were trying to hide, but then it's just like, there's a lot of little suspicious things, like the supposed bodies, the hieroglyphs, the strange material that's never been heard of.
Here's the thing about the bodies that I just can't buy, is I just don't think aliens would be driving their own spaceships. You know what I mean? If they're coming to observe, they're drones, right? Like why do we need bodies?
Yeah, the bodies
in there to pilot, and
like a pilot. That's like a 1960s, 1950s B alien movie concept, like the aliens piloting its own thing. Like realistically, it would be a drone. And realistically, I mean, I don't know if this would be possible. Realistically, if they could, they would just drone ships like from across like dimensions or across the universe. I don't know if they could maintain that signal or how that would work. Quantum entanglement or something, but yeah, like drone would make the most sense. So yeah, that's Roswell. And Roswell is definitely, like I said, one of the most compelling, and it's definitely the most enduring alien crash story, I think, of all time, probably. But there have been a few others since then, to say the least. And we're going to move now to a recent one that's pretty fun and pretty interesting. And this happened on April 30th, 2023 in Las Vegas. So a Las Vegas family claimed something crashed into their backyard, prompting them to call 911 about non-human beings. But the thing is, they weren't the only people that saw some weird stuff happening on that night. Several people saw it, including a cop. So keep that in mind. And there's also been body cam footage that was released from the cop. But at least in the footage that I saw, when the cop takes his body footage to the backyard where the supposed crash happened, they cut out the footage. And that's, to me, is super weird. Why do you cut the footage when you're showing the backyard?
Well, they said it was private property.
They said it was private property, but it was those people's property who gave permission, right? I don't know. That ostensibly it's because it was private property. So anyways, let's go through the 911 call. So caller, there's like an 8-foot person beside it, and there's another one inside, and it has big eyes, and it's looking at us. And it's still there.
That's so creepy.
just off the bat, that's super creepy. So that's what the caller says to the dispatcher. And the dispatcher is like, okay, so where is this on your property? And here's the caller. In my backyard, I swear to God, this is not a joke. This is actually, we're terrified. Now, here's the thing. I would never call the cops playing on the phone about someone in my backyard. And I don't know what adults would do that. You know what I mean? That's just bizarre because that's a dangerous situation, you know, in America, to call the cops to your house for something that's fake. You know what I mean? That's just a bizarre thing to do. I don't know anybody that would do that.
Well, if you saw a UFO or an alien, would you even report it?
Probably not. I would try to record it. I would be trying to record it. Like I would be trying as hard as I could to record it. Which is a weird thing about this story that they don't know cell phone footage. But let's keep going. So the dispatcher. So there's two people. There's two subjects in your backyard. And then the caller. Correct. And they're very large. They're like 8 or 9 feet, 10 foot. They look like aliens to us. Big eyes. They have big eyes. Like I can't explain it. And a big mouth. They're shiny eyes. They're 100% not human. All right. And this article also it also shows the official police transcript here. And the dispatcher just says, okay, after that. They say, okay there. The officers arrive at the house about an hour later. And the officer asks the witness, what did you see? The guy says, it was like a big creature. And the officer says, a big creature? And the guy says, yeah, more than 10 feet tall. Now, can you imagine still talking to a cop and just lying? I would be so afraid that the cop was going to arrest me or anything for just like saying some crazy stuff. I'd be afraid I sounded ridiculous. I feel like what kind of person lies about this? It's just really
somebody on drugs.
But he didn't seem, if you watch the video, it does not seem like he's on drugs. And there was more people in the house. It doesn't really, he seems coherent. And here is where it gets weird. All right. So this guy says, got the aliens. They're 10 foot tall in my backyard. The cop says, I'm not going to BS you guys. One of my partners said they saw something fall out of the sky too. So that's why I'm kind of curious. Did you see anything in your backyard? So, and in this video, in the body cam footage, you can also see like this weird blue light, this huge blue light skid across the sky. So there's so many weird things happening here. There's the people calling the cops about aliens in their backyard. So I feel like you have to be really scared to call the cops. Something happened, right? There's other people. There's like a Ring camera down the street that picked up like a boom that happened. There's the light in the sky that we visibly see on the body cam footage. There's the actual cop that also saw something fall out of the sky. So it's just like the combination of weird things in this scenario push this over a weird edge where it's like really hard to dismiss as like someone's just making something up for attention or fame. So this is a modern one that has happened, and it's one of the coolest modern ones that I've encountered.
Well, you know, I used to live in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I will say something about Las Vegas.
Ever seen some weird shit?
Yeah. Yeah. I wouldn't say that it was aliens, but if you go to Las Vegas, especially around summertime, the sky is weird. The weather is weird in Las Vegas. So I've heard other stories about lights in the sky in Las Vegas, but I'm not a meteorologist, so I don't know how to describe it. But the clouds do some weird things in that valley.
That's where the aliens are hiding.
Oh, that's where they're hiding.
Did you see Nope?
Sometimes those clouds would look so scary, and there'd be thunderstorms going off, and it'd be lighting up. And also the city lights can light up the sky in different ways, and it could look pretty freaky out there.
Yeah. Well, who knows? Who knows what's happening out here in the world? I mean, I can't discount anybody that believes in aliens, like we said in the beginning. There's weird stuff happening, and we don't understand everything. And ultimately, I think the idea of aliens is just fun. It's fun to talk about Roswell and to read about Roswell and to speculate on what happened. It's these stories like this Las Vegas one are very, very fun. You know what I mean? You want to believe that they saw like the aliens in the backyard, and then the cop sees it too. It's just fun.
But we have to acknowledge that we're getting more and more sightings and reports of weird things happening in the world every day.
And we've never really had like so many instances of like official people, whistleblowers coming out and being like, actually, there's weird shit.
I'm almost getting fatigued by it. My little brother sends me like news articles every day of UFO sightings, UAP sightings. And I'm like, okay, I got to sift through all of this. What's real? What's not? What can I believe?
And then we also live in the era of CGI, and it's so easy these days. So it's hard to know.
Whenever someone sends me a video, I'm like, okay. But you know what videos I do believe? The ones that the Pentagon has put out for us. Mm-hmm. They're saying this is real. We don't know what it is. It's moving at speeds that we cannot defy physics.
We don't know what it is.
We can see them with our eyes. We can see them on our radars. We don't know what it is. Are they aliens? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But something weird is happening.
And also, we both have a friend that's in geospatial locationing, works for the military, and he's such a little government shill because anytime we bring it up, he's just like, "Oh no, that's not that. No, this is like he's denying it. He knows what's."
He does it with a smirk on his face. Yeah, so I know he's lying.
He's very like secretive. Like it's like you're hiding it. He's hiding the truth. So yeah, I get the sense that he's hiding something. I just wanted to put that out there. So. All right, so that has been today's episode of the Cosmic Chronicles podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening. Again, I am your host, Quinn, and I am joined by my co-host, James.
See you guys next time.
And once again, I would like to mention that we are looking for sponsors. You can email us at cosmicchroniclespodcast@gmail.com. And you can also listen to this podcast on Apple Music, Google Podcast, Spotify, and wherever you listen to your podcast. We're everywhere. We're all over the place.
And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Thanks for listening, guys.